Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the commencement speaker for our 99th commencement exercises, Salman Khan.
It's really an honor, a surreal honor to be here. And what I hope to do, because to a large degree, maybe 35 might seem a lot older, but from my perspective, I don't feel a lot older than many of y'all in the audience. I kind of feel like a bit of an older brother to you. What I want to do is just share some thoughts, ideas, guiding principles that I have in my own adventure. They're work in progress. Take them with a grain of salt. Hopefully they'll help you in some way as you go on, you're about to embark on your own adventures. In a few minutes, you're going to get a diploma. And it's a powerful thing. Obviously, things brought you to Rice, your intelligence, your creativity, your hard work. But what that diploma is going to be is validation, a very powerful validation from one of the world's truly great universities. And when you have that, really neat things are going to start happening in your life. You're going to go places. You're going to get the interview. Your resume is going to go to the top of the stack. People are going to give you responsibility. They're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And the first thing I really want to kind of think together about is how you can leverage that validation that you're about to get to kind of increase the positivity in the world, to the net happiness in the world, to help hopefully empower others. And I personally believe that it'll probably come back to you. And I say this from the point of view of someone who's been directly empowered by Rice graduates, frankly, in a way that, frankly, all of what you just heard might have not happened had a few Rice graduates not stepped out of the woodwork. In 2009, and you heard a little bit of the narrative of Khan Academy, started from my cousins. 2009, tens of thousands of people started using it. It was pretty obvious most of them were not my cousins. I was fairly kind of intoxicated by what was happening. I was getting thank you letters from around the world, and I sat down with my wife, and we had a little bit of savings. In the introduction, it said I was the hedge fund manager. I want to clarify, I was the hedge fund analyst. It's two different economic strata. But it was a good career. I was doing well, and there was a potential of one day becoming the manager. But I frankly had trouble focusing on my day job. And so I sat down with my wife, and we had a little bit of savings, and I said, hey, someone should realize it's a not-for-profit. There's a potential here to do civilization-scale education. We can educate people for all of time. There's almost an infinite social return on investment here. Surely someone's going to realize that this is worth funding. And I kind of took that fairly naive point of view and quit my job and started working full-time on the Khan Academy. And like a lot of these stories happen, 9 months into it, I had a lot of meetings, and nothing quite had happened. Frankly, when you hear a bio and you're on these lists, you think, oh, it must have just been this very smooth ride. But 9 months into it, I actually hit something of a low point. We just had our first, I was 32 years old. Our son had just been born. We had dug about $30,000 or $40,000 into our savings, which was really for a down payment for a house we hadn't bought yet. And like a lot of you guys, I'd been this person, good grades my whole life, kind of a fast-track career and all that. And all of a sudden, I had done something that was a risk, and I knew that people kind of said, well, what's going on? Has Sal flaked out? I started becoming a little bit paranoid. Have I failed my family? We were on track to have a comfortable life, and now maybe it's all gone. And frankly, the only thing that kept me going was small acts of validation. Letters from people around the world saying, hey, this really helped. I got an A on my algebra exam, or this is the reason I was able to go back to college, or whatever else. But then all of a sudden, really when I was almost at the lowest point and I was frankly about to give up, I got the biggest act of validation, or one in a series, really. I had a little link on the website where people were donating $5, $10, and then all of a sudden a $10,000 donation comes in. And it was from someone named Ann Doerr, who I later learned is Rice, class of 1975. And I immediately emailed her back. I was like, well, thank you very much. This was the largest donation that the Khan Academy has ever received. If we were a physical school, you would now have a building named after you, which I think is somewhat less than what it goes for over here. I don't know what the But she said, and she was local, I was in Northern California, she said, well, we should have lunch. I want to learn more about what you're doing. And we had lunch at an Indian buffet restaurant in downtown Palo Alto. And she says, what's your vision here? I said, well, I want to keep making videos the rest of my life. We can have other faculty members. We can translate it into the world's languages. We can have interactive software, feedback. We can have ways to connect students in the world so that they can help each other. Really a world-class education for anyone, anywhere, for free. And she says, well, it's a very grand ambition, but I've seen what you've already done. I had about 900 videos at that point, and I really think there's a potential here. But I have a question. How are you supporting yourself? And in as kind of a proud way as possible, I said, I'm not. And she kind of nodded and we went our way. She got back on her bicycle. I got in my car. I went home. And right when I was going into the driveway, I already excited, but not expecting much more. I'd had 100 meetings like that, and not much had come of it. She had already been proved to be the biggest supporter of the Khan Academy. Right when I'm coming into my driveway, I get a text message from Ann. And it reads, you really need to be supporting yourself. I've just wired you $100,000. So it was a good day, and almost crashed into the garage. And I say that, obviously the money was a big deal. Based on the situation I was in and the family was in, but the real power of what Ann did was that act of empowerment, that act of validation, that act that she really believed in what I was doing. And I know, sometimes when I tell the story in the back of people's minds, I say, oh, well, she was in a position to do that. I'm not in a position to give someone $100,000. But one, I want to highlight that I had meetings with probably 50 other folks who were even in a better position to do it. But it was really, they were waiting for something else to happen. They were saying, well, this guy's operating out of a closet. I don't know what to make of it. It sounds like a good idea. And because of that kind of stalling, the idea might have happened to nothing. It might have not existed. And it really took a special type of person to step out there. And the other thing I want to point out is, yes, if you are in a position of doing what Ann did, that's unbelievable. And that's an unbelievable power to have in your life. But I personally believe, and now, especially now that I'm getting in more of a position to not do what Ann did, but to empower other people, I want to highlight there's something that you can do in your own way tonight. You can validate others, empower others, increase the net happiness, the positivity in the world. It could be as simple as your family's going to have dinner tonight, and you go to a restaurant, and you see someone do something great. And too often, we kind of just sit back and say, oh, that was good service. Maybe you give an extra tip. You're at work, or you see a colleague who goes above and beyond, and you say, oh, that was pretty good. They did a nice thing. And what I hope, and this is something that I tell myself all the time, is don't just sit by and observe it. Recognize it. When you see someone do something great, tell them about it. Tell their bosses about it. Tell their family about it. And when you do that, all sorts of neat, exciting things are going to start percolating into the universe. Obviously, you're going to make that person's day. You're going to make their year. You might make their career. I've seen it happen before. You probably, in some way, will make their life. Even more, they're going to start doing that ultra-positive thing more. The people around them are going to see the recognition they got for it, and they're going to start emulating it. And even though that wasn't your intent, you just wanted to highlight something good that's happening in the world, people will recognize that you are a source of positivity. And when you're a source of positivity, people will just naturally gravitate to you. The second idea I want to share with you, and once again, all of these are works in progress, is the idea of kind of being a lifelong learner. And something I want to stress as much as possible, given the phase that you're about to enter, the next 10 years are your chance to ask the naive questions, which you'll later learn are actually the profound questions, the ones that are actually going to be the game changers. It's your chance to really invest in yourself. And one thing that I have kind of a unique vantage point at the Khan Academy is that we see all of these lifelong learners and how much it's changing their own views on life. And early on in 2008, I had when the financial crisis hit, I started making videos. It was my background. I started making videos on the Federal Reserve and credit default swaps and mortgage-backed securities. And I got a letter from a judge. I got all sorts of, this was really helpful. I understand what's happening in the news. But I got one particularly powerful letter. It was a gentleman who worked at I will say an unnamed investment bank. And he says, thank you for that video on mortgage-backed securities. I now know what I do for a living. Which is, I guess that's more of a scary story than a good one. But it goes to the extreme. It's not just something that's going to affect you in a practical way, forward your career. Probably we get all sorts of amazing letters and testimonials from people around the world, but still the one that resonates in my brain the most, and it really is this testament to lifelong learning. And it really is a testament that it goes beyond the practical. It goes beyond what you might make use of. I got a letter also in 2008, a terminal cancer patient. She had 2 months to live. And she said, and it blew my mind, I've got 2 months. She said it in a shockingly positive tone. And she said, but my life's dream was to learn calculus, and Khan Academy's given that, and I look forward to spending the last 2 months of my life learning it. And when I saw that, it changed my own perspective. It made me excited to be a learner for as long as I have the privilege of being around. The last idea I want to share with you is really just kind of keep things in perspective. And I know we all say it, but it really, you have to keep reinforcing it. Everyone in this audience, knock on wood, you're going to do just fine. You're going to have your 4-bedroom house. You're going to have your car with power windows. You'll be able to go to SeaWorld whenever you want to. But along that way, there are going to be ups and downs. And actually, those ups and downs tend to happen a lot when you go to transition points, when you're entering the workforce, you're entering some type of a new phase in your life. And you just always have to keep on the kind of the long-term game, the end game. And I'll tell you myself, I've gone through some fairly dramatic ones right when I was out the gate. This was 1998, I just graduated. I was few months older than most of y'all, and some computer magazine had seen something I had done, and they wrote this neat profile about me. They called it Future So Bright, and I saw that magazine. I was very proud of it. I was like, oh, look, I'm set. I have this career ahead of me. I'm already profiled in a magazine, and frankly, I got kind of into myself, and that's okay. You can enjoy your successes, but I really didn't have any perspective, and frankly, it was a dangerous thing to happen, and to really put things in perspective, and I'm happy it did happen. 2 months later, I had kind of switched jobs and higher salary. I thought I was on the fast track, and I had a new boss. And on the first 3 days of work, he spent an hour just completely castigating me, essentially telling me that I was not worth his time, that I was incompetent as far as he was concerned. And so you can imagine, like a lot of us, successful whole life, fancy degrees from fancy universities. 2 months ago, I was profiled in a magazine, and then now all of a sudden, not even 23 years old, I was back in a hotel room in the middle of nowhere crying, not knowing what I was going to do with my life, convinced that it was all end of everything, that everything was for naught. And, so you get through them, you wake up in the morning, things look a little bit better. A week later, things look a little better. You start circulating your resume around. I did find another job 2 months later. And it's okay. And the one thing I want to stress, because, I've gone through ups and downs, and you only have one perspective for your own life, but I suspect many of y'all are going to have higher ups than I've had, and many of y'all are going to have lower downs. I worry about that sometimes. The ones of you who have higher ups, just keep them in perspective. And it's inevitable. Some of you are going to race ahead and be so successful that none of us can imagine it right now. But keep them in perspective. When you enjoy the successes, but when your ego starts feeling a little bit large, keep in mind the sun will supernova one day. The galaxies will collide. We are these small little mammals on this small planet, or there's 100, 200 billion stars in the galaxy, in just our galaxy alone, and just have peace in the little success. And when you have a hard time, and you will, and those who will go through painful periods, you might stumble and start your first few times out the gate. Also keep in perspective that those stresses, put them in perspective of the universe. They are small. They're going to be things that you'll be able to laugh about, talk about 10, 15 years from now, or hopefully 10, 15 days from then. And so to bring it all together, I want to give you a little thought experiment that I actually use for myself all the time when I am faced with a tough decision, or I want to think about how do I approach my life. And so imagine yourself 50 years in the future. You're in your early 70s, and you're hanging out at home. You've just watched the State of the Union hologram by President Bieber, and And right after that, you start reflecting on your life. And you first think about all of the successes you've had. You know, you had a very good career, you were able to provide for your family, you had amazing friendships. And I'll tell you, I can guarantee you, 50 years from now, you will keep reflecting about the friendships that you made here. You will keep thinking about this campus. And you'll reflect on them, you'll smile about it. You'll think about your children, you'll think about the bonds you've made, the contributions you've made to the world. But you'll also think about things that you wish you'd done just a little bit better. Maybe you call them regrets if you want. We'll all have them. And I have a sense of what those regrets might be. They'll be, well, I did all right, but I wish that I had spent more time with my children. I wish that I told my spouse that I loved them more frequently. I wish that I spread more positivity, I empowered more people, I validated more people, I smiled more often, I laughed more often. I wish that I had a chance to spend more time and hug and tell my parents how much I loved them before they passed. And right when you start having those regrets, a genie pops up and says, you seem like a good person, you've done a lot in your life, but I've been eavesdropping on your regrets and they seem like valid ones. So I'm going to give you a second chance. And you say, well, sure. And so the genie snaps his fingers and brings you back right over here, brings you back to Rice University, May 2012, and says, this is your second chance. You can do all the successes that you had on the first pass, all the career successes, the life successes, but this is your chance to optimize. This is your chance to laugh a little bit more, your chance to spread a little bit more positivity, your chance to really tell the people who matter to you how much you love them, but before, frankly, it's too late. And so here I am, truly honored and humbled to be here, just completely excited by what you all are going to do in your second pass. Thank you.